Hello friends, in February 2021, the Dasgupta review report on the economics of biodiversity was released, and today we are going to discuss the key messages of this report. So first of all, we should know who is this Dasgupta. Professor Sir Partha Dasgupta is working as the Frank Ramsey Professor Emeritus of Economics at the St. John's College, Cambridge. To know more about the review report, this report was commissioned in the spring 2019 by the then Chancellor of the Exchequer of the United Kingdom government, and Professor Sir Partha Dasgupta was supported by an advisory panel which included the experts from public policy, science, economics, finance, and business. Partha Dasgupta submitted this report in February 2021. This report has 21 chapters, and the length of the report is about 606 pages. In fact, this report has been released in three versions. One is the full report, which is 606 pages, then an abridged version, basically the summary of the report, and similarly you can see that the views of different experts around the world on this report that has been also published, and the key messages of the report has been also published separately. So today we are going to discuss the highlights of this report. These are basically the content. So there is chapter 0, and it talks about basically the economic growth, the population growth. So basically it talks about how we got to where we are now, and then it covers the chapter nature as an asset. Chapter 2 is biodiversity and economic services. Chapter 3 talks about the biospheric disruption. Chapter 4 talks about the human impact on the biosphere. Chapter 5 talks about the risk and uncertainty. Chapter 6 covers laws and norms as social institutions. Chapter 7 talks about the human institutions and ecological systems, the unidirectional externalities and regulatory policies. Chapter 8 talks about the human institutions and ecological systems, common pool resources, so on. And you can see that we have 21 chapters. Okay? And so in the concluding part, it talks about the road ahead. So if you see these 21 chapters, then this has been divided into basically three parts. The part 1 talks about the foundation, part 2 talks about the extensions, and part 3 basically gives suggestions, basically how can we solve the problem, the road ahead. Okay? And so we are going to discuss the highlights of this report. So the first point that is coming out of this report is that Partha Dasgupta is saying that our economies, livelihoods, and well-being all depend on our most precious asset, that is called nature. So the key word is that the economy, the livelihood, and well-being all depend upon the nature, and this is the most precious asset we can have, other than the capital, the physical capital, the monetary capital that we have. Nature is the most precious asset. And we should understand that we are part of the nature and we are not separate from it. Nature is more than merely an economic good. Many people value it, its very existence, and recognize its intrinsic worth too. And we should understand that the biodiversity enables the nature to be productive, resilient, and adaptable. So if we destroy the biodiversity, then the adaptive capacity and the productivity of the nature would decline, which has already happened because of the loss of biodiversity. The productive capacity of the nature has gone down, the resilient capacity of the nature has gone down. So we should not see the nature as merely an economic good. Okay? The existence value is quite high. Okay? We do not know in what use actually the nature would be coming, some asset would be coming in future. So the existence value has a lot of significance. So that's the first point, that we all depend on the nature and we are part of the nature. We are not separated from it. So if we think that no, we are living separately from the nature and we can damage and destroy the nature and still we can maximize the economic growth, then this is very much incorrect because you are part of it. So if nature is destroyed, we will equally be destroyed in that process. So the point 2 is that we have collectively failed to engage with the nature sustainably. So we have exploited our nature in a very unsustainable manner, and our demands are much higher than what nature can supply. Such as you see that we extract minerals, we clear forest, we burn coal, and so the nature provides us a lot of inputs or the raw materials. Similarly, it also serves as a sink. Whatever pollution we do or whatever emission we do, the nature also absorbs this. But there is a limit. Nature cannot provide unlimited resources to us, or the nature cannot absorb unlimited amount of carbon dioxide or any pollutants. So our demands on these services, particularly as the input provider and also as the sink service provider, our demands have far exceeded what nature can supply to us. So that actually basically causes the unsustainability. And one estimation shows that between 1992 and 2014, the produced capital per person has doubled. When we say produced capital, this would include the land, building, the machineries, the inventories. So this produced capital per person, we can say per capita, produced capital has basically doubled. But and also the human capital, which includes the health and education, the skill of the people per person has also increased by about 13%. So you can measure in terms of the years of schooling, the skills that we have inherited formally or informally. So that has increased by 13%. And the stock of the natural capital per person, however, has declined nearly by 40%. See, that means when the human capital and the physical capitals are growing, it has almost doubled, or human capital has increased by 13%. The natural capital per person has declined by 40%. So this is a matter of serious concern, because see, remember in the first point we told that we are part of the nature. Now if the nature is destroyed 40%, then the meaning of doubling the physical capital will not have any sense. And so one estimate also shows that we would require 1.6 Earths to maintain the world's current living standards. So what does it mean? That the Mother Earth cannot carry the capacity at present, because the demand that we are putting on the Mother Earth is 1.6 times than it can supply to us. So that is a matter of serious concern. And then United Nations Environment Program also says that if the present trend continues, particularly the demand on the nature, if the present trend continues, the way it is growing, the obsession for growth, if it continues, then by 2050 we would require 3 planets Earth to fulfill our needs, and we know that we do not have 3 planets. So it clearly gives a message that we are following an unsustainable path. Nature cannot bear this burden, and this problem is basically is called as impact inequality. Parth Dasgupta review report basically coins this concept called impact inequality, which is basically the imbalance between our demands and nature supply. The mismatch between the demand and nature the demand on the or demand for the nature's goods and the nature supply is basically called as the impact inequality. Then the point 3 is that our unsustainable engagement with nature is endangering the prosperity of the current and future generation. So we are endangering the prosperity of the future, okay, and also the present generation. We never know that when we are going to be impacted very severely, and our future generation is also going to cause us. Remember that all the people on this planet are not the owner of the resources. We are all the trustees of these resources. This planet has been given to us as we are the trustees of this planet. So when we leave this planet or when we die, we have to leave this planet as it was given to us. That's what Brundtland Commission basically report says. It defines the sustainable development, and it says that sustainable development is the development that meets the need of the present generation without compromising the ability of the future generation to meet their own needs. So if we destroy the resources, then the future generation will not be able to fulfill their needs. As we are enjoying more resources, the future generation will not be getting that. So we see that the biodiversity is declining faster than at any time in the human history, and the current extinction rates are around 100 to 1000 times higher than the baseline rate, and they are still increasing. So this is quite high. No, so people also say that we are going through a phase called again mass extinction phase, where we see that so many species are now similarly vanishing from this planet, and such declines are undermining nature's productivity. We have told that in the first slide that when nature's diversity reduces, it also would reduce the productivity of the nature, it would reduce the resilient capacity of the nature, and it would reduce the adaptability of the nature. And in turn, we are increasing the risk and uncertainty for our own economies and well-being. And so we need to reverse this trend, and we need to act urgently on this. Otherwise, we will face the disaster, and the future generation will also be badly impacted. Then the fourth point that is emphasized in this report is that all this problem is arising because of the institutional failure. So when we say institutional failure, we have relied upon the formal institutions, mostly the market and the government or the non-governmental organizations, we can say, and we can also sometimes take the help of the informal institutions. So all these institutions have failed to preserve this planet, and since in the recent decades we are relying greatly on the market forces, we use the concept called market failure. That market has failed to preserve to protect the environment and the biodiversity, and that is happening because the nature's value to the society is not reflected in the market prices. We don't value the nature. So for example, when we look at a tree, we might be looking at the tree only from its timber value, but then the tree would be generating a lot of oxygen. It might be helping in the climate control, soil, it controls the soil erosion, and then it gives shade, it gives different non-timber forest product. So it has so many utility. It might be again providing the habitat to many other species. So it helps in the soil nutrition cycle. So it provides so many other services, and we do not know the value of all these services. So that's why the market does not reflect the true value of the nature. And moreover, the aspects of nature are mobile, and see, the market failure is happening with nature because nature is mobile. Okay? And so for example, fish, it moves from one place to the other, and so it is difficult to tag a market price. Similarly, nature is invisible. We do not know many of the things. That's why we cannot monetize this. And such as in the soil, and nature is also silent. So due to these three characteristics, that nature is mobile, nature is invisible, and nature is silent, it causes actually the market failure. That means the market does not reflect the true price of the nature. However, in the recent years, we have taken a lot of initiatives to correct these market failures at international level and to achieve the sustainable development path, and that's how we can see that the 15th conference of the parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity, that is called as COP15, and the 26th conference of the parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, that is called as COP26, provide important opportunities to set a new ambitious direction for the coming decades. So if we follow these commitments, probably we can correct some of these institutional failures at international level and national level. So what is the solution to all these institutional failures and to the present problem? So the solution lies with accepting a simple truth that our economies are embedded within nature and we are not external to it. So because if we realize this, then we can say that if we destroy the nature, we are going to be impacted. In fact, we can link it to the Coase theorem. Basically, Coase says that, or in environmental problems, we discuss that all the problems happens as an externality. Okay, whether it is positive externality or negative externality. Due to this, we exploit the environment, or the natural resources are degraded, or the environment is degraded. But we say this external because we consider environment as external to us. So we pollute the environment because it is external to us. But if we realize that the environment is internal to us, then we will never damage this. For example, when we throw the garbage outside, we think that okay, this is external. So if we throw it, this is not going to impact us. We never basically pollute our own house, but we think that the outside place is basically external to us, and so if we pollute, it is not going to impact us. But we would never pollute our own compound, okay, because we know that this is ours. So if we pollute it, then we are going to be impacted. So if we consider the entire planet or the entire nature as our own house, our own property, then we would never damage this. So the idea is that we should understand. Partha Dasgupta says that the solution starts with understanding and accepting a simple truth, that is that economies are embedded within the nature. So that externality problem is solved. Okay, or when we say that you have to tax to internalize this, that is not required. With a simple realization. Similarly, in case of Coase theorem, it says that two parties need to come together and discuss this, because this problem is called as externality. Okay, so here that all problem will be solved if we simply realize this, that the nature is internal to us. This is not external to us. Then the sixth major point of this report is that we need to change the way we think, act, and measure our success. So, what are those three things? The Dasgupta report actually talks about the three transitions that are required in our thought process, in our action, and in our measurement of the success. So, the first one is that we need to ensure that our demands on nature do not exceed its supply, and that we increase nature's supply relative to its current level. So, what does it mean? That I told you that the demand in the nature comes from two sides. One is that we use the nature as the input provider and a sink service provider. That means it gives us the raw materials and it also absorbs our pollutants, okay, or all the waste. So that is the demand on the nature, and then the supply capacity is limited. It cannot provide unlimited resources. Be it renewable or non-renewable sources. Similarly, the nature's ability to absorb the waste is also limited. So that's why so to understand that the supply capacity of the nature is limited, and that's why we have to reduce our demand on the nature. So that is the first point. And since our demand has already exceeded, we need to reduce the demand to match to the nature's supply capacity. That is the first point Dasgupta is suggesting. And the second point is that we need to change our measures of economic success to guide us on a more sustainable path. So we usually use GDP numbers, GDP growth rate, as the key indicator of the success. That's why there is a competition in achieving in achieving the economic growth rates. So for example, the developing nations are competing to have more and more growth rates, double digit, maybe more than 10%, because we have been thinking that the faster economic growth means it is a measure of economic success. And Sir Dasgupta, Partha Dasgupta is suggesting in this report that we need to change the measure of economic success. Okay? And that's why he is suggesting that we have to go for an inclusive measure of wealth, which basically includes the physical capital, the human capital, and the natural capital. That is most important, because we have seen that although the physical capital and human capital supply or the stock is increasing, we see that the stock of the natural capital is declining. This has declined by 40% only in last 2 decades. So we have to go for an inclusive measure of wealth. That would be the true measure of economic success. And then the third suggestion that is given by Partha Dasgupta is that we have to transform our institutions and systems, in particular our finance and education system, to enable these changes and sustain them for future generations. So Dasgupta is saying that we have to change 2 systems. One is the education system, because the present generation would be the future generation and if we can change the mindset, and if we can educate them that nature is internal to us, nature is basically part of us, then we will take the preservation of nature seriously. Similarly, the finance institutions also needs to be changed, because the finance institutions do not probably give enough funding, and that the market mechanism also do not reflect the true value of the nature. So that's why Dasgupta is suggesting that we need to transform our institutions, particularly the finance and educational systems, to enable the changes to sustain them for future generation. And Dasgupta is also suggesting that we have to have a supranational institutional arrangement, because to have better coordination among the countries, to again solve the problem of failure of cooperation between different countries, Dasgupta is suggesting that we need to have a supranational institutional arrangement here to solve this problem. So these are the 3 major suggestions given, and Dasgupta is suggesting that we need to change the way we think, act, and measure our success. And the last point, the important point, is that the transformative change is possible. Okay? And it's not that we have to go with the status quo and the present lifestyle. Dasgupta is saying that transformative change is possible, and we and our descendants deserve nothing less than that, because I have told you that this planet Earth has been given to us as the trustees. Okay, so we are the trustees of this planet, and that's why our grandchildren deserve more than what we have enjoyed, or at least equal to actually what we have enjoyed on this planet. They don't deserve anything less than what we have enjoyed. But these transformative changes require the sustained commitment of all actors at all levels. So we need to have the behavioral changes, okay, that we need to understand that the nature is embedded within us, and we need to change the way we measure our success, and we have to also reduce our demand from the nature, and similarly we have to think how to bring such institutions so that the problem is solved. So these are the 7 points actually that basically covers the message of the Dasgupta review report on the economics of biodiversity. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I would recommend everyone to read this report and bring some behavioral changes in our life, and particularly Dasgupta is suggesting that we need to bring changes in our education and financing system. So he has a lot of hope on the education institution. If we can change the behavior of the people through education system, then the earth can be saved, and we can probably avoid a disaster in the coming days. Thank you very much for watching this.